is full, so we'll get started. Good afternoon, financial professionals, and welcome to another edition of The Brew, where we share important information, sales ideas, and build relationships every week. I'm John Florence, your host for today. As is our tradition, we like to begin these sessions with a quick recap of today's national holidays. Today is National Running Day, where avid runners everywhere share their passion for their sport and encourage us all to go outside and exercise our bodies. And also to encourage beginners to make a lifelong commitment to running as a lifestyle. Coincidentally, or not coincidentally, just interestingly, in 1977, some of you may remember a gentleman by the name of Dr. Jim Fixx, who published a book called The Complete Book of Running, which was actually credited with popularizing the sport of running for millions of Americans. And it also outlined a lot of the health benefits to be obtained from a daily run or a jog. Ironically, Dr. Fixx died of a heart attack at age 52 while he was out for a run. But in spite of that, medical opinion still continues to uphold the connection between moderate exercise and longevity. Today is also Go Barefoot Day. Today gives you the opportunity to kick off your shoes and sink your toes into some cool summer grass or nice sandy beach someplace. More importantly, it's also when charities can support underprivileged children around the world with donations of shoes. Now, if you like to go running and you like the Go Barefoot holiday, I suggest maybe you combine the two of them together and go for a barefoot run. Today is also Say Something Nice Day. In our polarized world, it seems that kind words are in short supply. So this day was created to counteract the lack of civility and common courtesy that we all experience from day to day. So go out and make somebody's day extra special by saying something nice to them. And on that note, I would like to say, Jeremy, you look very dapper today. And I have to say that I think you are one of the best new additions to the E4 Insurance Services team in a long time.
Wow, thanks, John. I feel great.
So on today's brew, we are joined by my colleague, Jeremy Vidmar. Jeremy is one of our newer regional vice presidents. He used to be in personal production, but discovered he has a talent for helping other advisors to work with farmers and ranchers whose needs financially and insurance-wise are frequently different from those of other typical clients. Jeremy lives in Bismarck, North Dakota, with his wife and 6 young children. It makes me tired just thinking about it. And I'm sure he has some absolutely amazing stories about raising 6 kids. But today, he's going to share some stories from the field, as it were. These will be anecdotes about what it's like working with members of the agricultural community. Now, before we go to Jeremy, I'd like to remind you all that today's brew is being recorded, as are all brewcasts, and you will be able to find this and all previous recordings on our website or on the E4 YouTube channel. Keep an eye on the chat box, where we'll also be posting periodic messages. And there, you can also post any questions you may have to Jeremy. As usual, at the end of this session, we'll be doing a drawing for the attendees for a Starbucks gift card and a CE voucher card. Jeremy, welcome to the brew. The floor is yours.
Thanks, John. I just want to say I am a runner, and I sometimes go barefoot, but I've never gone barefoot running. So maybe I'll have to try that sometime. I have seen people run marathons, though, entirely, the whole marathon barefoot. So it can be done. Good afternoon. I want to start, if we're talking about farmers and ranchers, I put on a ball cap because that's the way we talk to them. And I want to say that it's the worst time of the year to talk to farmers. It's planting time, so they're really busy. Now, I'll also say that spraying time comes next, and then harvest time, and then hauling time, and then winter time, and then calving time. So there is always a time that's not a good time for farmers, but you still have to have those conversations. I just kind of want to tell a few stories that I've kind of had, that especially when I was in personal production. And I think there's some things we can glean not only from farmers and ranchers and their lifestyle, but also how we can help serve them in the best way. The first one that I'll say is I titled this one kind of Farming, Ranching is a Lifestyle, but you still have to file a Schedule F. And I remember this was actually when I was in banking. I was a lender for a short time, and there was a client who was ending out his career. He had taken advantage of the 179 expense deduction and all of the deductions he could, deferring grain sales most years. And he got to retirement, and it was he didn't have anybody taking over, and so he decided to have an auction to sell off all of his machinery and equipment. So the auction was very successful, and he came in with a big check and paid off the last of his debts. And he was pretty excited. He had some money to spare. He thought he was, good to go. The trouble came when the IRS came calling and wanted to take back all that depreciation he had used. So lo and behold, he was back in the bank asking for some more money, needing to borrow against his land so that he could pay the IRS tax bill that was coming. And I think the thing that I kind of gleaned from this, anyways, from this story of this gentleman was farmers, ranchers, growing the crops, raising the cattle, all of that. They do that very well. They market, haul, all of that stuff. The thing that we can really do for them is to be that business partner, the ones who can really help them to keep the wheels spinning in the right direction, and help them in the areas that maybe they don't have the expertise. So don't be afraid to be the CFO of the farm, of the ranch, for them and with them. The second story that I kind of have, there we go, is farmers, ranchers, they never really retire, but we also don't need a 60-year-old farmhand. And I think this is probably one of the most difficult conversation situations to walk into. It's usually dad, or sometimes it's dad and mom, and they say something to the effect of, I want to die in the seat, or want to die going out checking cows, want to ride off into the sunset that way. And I get it. I mean, it makes sense. It's definitely more than just a career. It's more than a job. But the problem comes in when the son or the daughter or whoever's taking over they're typically going to be 50, 60 years old when mom and dad do finally ride off into the sunset. And they need to have some more stability in the meantime. So I think, real conversations need to be had much, much sooner than most people think. It's not sustainable for a son or a daughter to be living as a hired hand into their 60s. I've seen and have been a part, unfortunately, of more than a few situations where, the son thinks he's taken over because he's, quote unquote, been there his whole life and he's worked. However, his brother's bitter wife hires an attorney after mom and dad are gone, and he's nothing more than a hired hand at that point. He's either buying things at fair market value, or he's going to town to find another job. It's a really sad situation because he has lived his whole life there and he's worked his whole life. The other thing in these situations that I often find is that mom and dad are sometimes kind of covering for the son or the daughter. A lot of times farmers are asset rich, catch poor. So the way that a lot of times we equalize is obviously using life insurance. And so when it comes to implementing life insurance to help equalize things, mom and dad will oftentimes give the excuse, well, my son can't afford it. Farming's too tough right now. I find it really interesting because it doesn't take, you don't have to look back too far to see or to talk to them and say, how did you guys get started? And the answer is always, it was hard. We had to scrap by to make ends meet, and it was pretty difficult. And they make an excuse for the son, but when you actually have a conversation with the son, he says, yeah, it's not great. I don't like paying premiums, but for what I'm going to get, this is an incredible opportunity. So don't be afraid, to bring up those hard conversations, both with the parents and with the children, and try and bring everybody around the table to have those hard conversations. Third story, this is one of my favorites. I call this one, Watch Yourself, She's Coming Your Way. So I was at a farmhouse, and the farmer's wife, her mother had passed away. So she had a policy with the company I was working for. And so I was there to handle the death claim and get all the beneficiary information. And it was right around noon, right around this time. So it's perfect time for dinner or noon meal, whatever you want to call it. And she asked if I wanted to have some chili. So I've never wanted to turn down a meal. So I said yes. And so we're getting things ready, and her husband comes in, and it was clear that he was less than impressed that that an insurance guy was sitting at his dinner table. But he was courteous. He was, he was kind to me. And as we're eating, I could tell he's looking out the window, and something's not right. So he said, "Well, I think I'm gonna have to run out there and help her." And it was a heifer who was calving. And so I, at the time, especially, I always kept a pair of mud boots in my trunk, and I threw on the mud boots and said, "Can I come out and help?" So we head out to the corral, and we're trying to chase this heifer into the barn, and I'm kind of hiding behind a windbreak. And he says, "Watch out, she's coming your way." Well, so I jump out of the way. We end up getting her into the barn. Calves pulled. An hour later, we end up walking back into the house. Topic of insurance comes up, obviously, and lo and behold, he realizes that he needs more coverage. So right then and there, we filled out an application, and it's probably about a month later, he was approved at preferred rates. So the point of this story is, farmers, ranchers especially, are really proud of what they got, and they need to know that you know it. So don't be afraid to take a ride in a combine, put on a pair of mud boots, get out there and help see what they got. I think, it's especially important for us. Sometimes it's easy to kind of just look at a financial solution, but we don't realize what it is that we're protecting, and we can really see that with our own eyes. The other side note to this story that I take away is when you have a 1,400-pound heifer running at you, it's never a bad idea to have a little more life insurance. So let's see. And then my last kind of story here is the Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, whatever it is. I just want Thanksgiving and Christmas to happen when I'm gone. Again, in the financial services industry, it's really easy to get wrapped up in the numbers, how to make them all work out. And for all the above reasons, obviously this is really important. But I think it's really important for us to sometimes take a step back and to realize that we're trying to accomplish some goals here. It's typically mom who says something like, "I want the kids and the grandkids to come back home for Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, and I want to know that they're going to talk to each other." When we keep this in mind, we know that the solutions we provide are providing for something that's way bigger than just the numbers on the sheet of paper. Personally, like, I've witnessed just tremendous relief from a farmer when I deliver an insurance policy. I mean, obviously nobody wants to pay a premium when the notice comes, but when you can tell them, this is going to provide for some equalization for your family, that's going to help to make the succession planning possible, the relief is just tremendous. So again, the point of this story is just, the solutions we provide are not just financial in nature. We're helping to accomplish goals that can bring or restore peace to a household. And that's no small thing. I mean, it's a big deal that we're able to bring those solutions and help to accomplish these goals. So those are my, 4 stories, I guess, from the field, so to speak. And, I think we can, hopefully these stories make you realize that our work is really meaningful. The solutions we provide are not just numbers on a page, and that, we can help to restore or accomplish or help bring about peace to families, especially farmers and ranchers, for generations to come. So now, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any, or if John has anything to say here, or Brendan, it looks like.
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that, and I guess you're getting almost run over by a cow story, case in point, but sounds like farming's dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
What do you do on the disability front with your farmers?
Yeah, well, there is, Illinois Mutual does have its modest disability insurance plans that you can put in place. So I'm actually working with an advisor right now who we're trying to put that on for a farmhand as an added benefit for them. But I've more than a few.
Yeah, first slide you had looked like the guy only had one full arm.
No, it's just behind his back.
Oh, okay. Well, wasn't certain.
I mean, I used to live down in Mott, and there was, in 1 year, we had some pretty tragic accidents, and it's a reality. It's reality of farming. Somebody lost a hand.
Do you bring up disability or
All the time.
do you? Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, looking at catastrophic sort of disability, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to use some long-term care planning, because the underwriting is it's nearly impossible to get disability on farmers and ranchers, like true disability income, in my experience anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate those stories, Jeremy. I'll share another brief one. This is a little bit related to long-term planning as well, and particularly where it comes to wills and estates. And there's a story that's happened in Ohio. There was a farmer who was out working in his fields and working alone, and one of his piece of machinery, tractor, broke down, and he was working on it and ended up cutting himself severely, and realized that he didn't really have any way to stop this bleeding, and he knew he was going to die on the spot. And he ended up, before he died, scratching into the dust on the fender of his vehicle. It said basically, "My wife gets everything." Then he passed away. Well, they found his body, and the actual fender of that tractor was admitted in court as evidence, as proof of his estate. But the bigger story there is to, remember that these are conversations that are best had before these kinds of terrible events happen, and, get your planning in appropriately beforehand, even though, something like a fender can be used as legal recourse. It's not probably the best way for somebody to handle that.
No, yeah, obviously, but and that's why I think, I mean, we can really be an impetus for having those conversations that people don't want to have, and it's really important. Stuff we talk about is really important.
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting to see if there are any other questions in the chat box, Jeremy, usually at this time of the brew, we like to have our speaker pick a number, and today the number will be between 1 and 22, and we'll see who our winner is for today's prize.
Lucky number 13.
Lucky number 13 is Trina Hanner. Trina, congratulations. You have won a Starbucks gift card and also a CE voucher card. And so be on the lookout for an email from us, from E4, your friends here. And we thank you for being a participant and an attendant here on the show.
John, I have another, it's not really a question, but more a comment. Another member on our team, Shane Fickling, he always likes to break down the cost of insurance by the number of acres they have. So it's, if it's a $10,000 premium and, they have $10,000 or 10,000 acres, it's only $1 per acre. And I just think that's a great way to do it, and thought I'd share for those that want to.
If they have cattle, you can break it down to the number of calves. Maybe the premium is going to cost you 5 calves a year, but is it worth saving the whole herd? Yeah.
Yeah. Or if they have 6 kids, you break the premium down that way. Gets a whole lot cheaper.
There you go, Brendan.
Very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do thank you for being a part of the brew today. And we remind you that this has been recorded. It'll be posted up onto the YouTube channel later today, as well as on our website at e4.insurance. And I remind you that next week we'll be back with the brew again at noon on Wednesday Central Time. And we'll be hearing from Bill Anderson, also one of the RVPs at E4. And Bill's going to be talking about his subject, which is living better and leaving more. So we'll look forward to hearing from Bill next week, only on the brew. Thanks for coming today. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.